Well, things have calmed down a lot now this morning. Overnight we had some very heavy rain and brought quite a bit of wind with the odd gusts. But now we're back to blue skies and sunshine, which is very pleasant, after we've had quite a few grey days of not very nice weather. So I'm thinking of moving on. The wind is dying down almost to nothing if the forecast is to be believed. So I thought we'd move on to Fakarava. I couldn't do that against a strong north wind because that's the direction we're going, roughly, northwest actually, but hopefully that will work out. I'm waiting till later today and it'll be an overnight passage because you have to get the timing in the passes to try and get an inflow rather than an outflow. Anyway, we'll see how that goes. That's quite complicated getting timing information. Well, gone are the blue skies of this morning and the wind doesn't seem to be dying down. We've got a little bit of very, very light rain, hardly anything, but grey overcast now instead of the blue skies earlier. So here is my route from Tahanea northwest to Fakarava, a good 80 odd miles, so clearly an overnight passage was needed. And the weather for the Wednesday was pretty strong initially, headwinds in the direction I was going, but becoming lighter and hopefully becoming extremely light by the time I arrived at the atoll of Fakarava. It's looking very much like another case of sailing plans are made in wet sand at low water. I might have to change my mind. We'll see whether this wind dies down at all. Might have to delay a day. It's just gone 3 o'clock and the wind has died right down. It's looking pretty calm, so I'm going to try and see if I can get the anchor up, start the engine, get the anchor up, but first I have to get rid of what I've been using in place of my missing snubbers. Here's what I've been using. A strong piece of Dyneema line has been holding onto the chain, onto the deck fittings here. Doesn't help the bow roller at all, of course, but at least it takes the load off the gypsy. Knots on both sides were very, very well tied, but the pull on from the anchor was so strong it was really difficult to undo them. All ready, now we start the engine. Well, that's bad news. We're well and truly stuck on this Bommy, this little bit of coral here, and I'm trying to get us up, but it's just not coming. Well, I did everything I could to get the chain free. I went forwards, backwards, I let some more down, I brought it up again. I just could not get it off the Bommy. So in the end I got on channel 16 and VE, a Swedish guy, came from his boat. Here he is in the dinghy. And he kindly came and said he'd try to snorkel to help me. And he brought a couple of German guys with him also in their dinghy. And it needed both their dinghy and PE in the water to get me off 3 different Bommies. I could not believe that we had got tangled around 3 different ones. And so with PE in the water snorkeling, he was able to tell the German guys which way to go to push the rider, and off we came. There we go. So finally I was actually able to get going before dark, and this was our passage out. Fortunately, we seemed to manage to keep away from that nasty grey cloud for quite a time. Leaving Tanahea under motor against a very light headwind. Off to Fakarava. Well, to begin with, coming through towards the pass, there was this beautiful sunset, really lovely. Coming out of the pass now. Nasty grey cloud over there. But unfortunately we've got 10 knots of wind almost from dead ahead, and it's almost exactly in the direction that we want to go. So clearly this was an overnight passage, and here we are coming towards the southeast corner of Fakarava. Well, it's just gone 6:30 in the morning and we're coming around the northeast corner of Fakarava. An almost rectangular atoll, this one. It got light about an hour ago, just after 5 was first light, 5:30. And it's been misty, rainy all night long. Very, very fine misty rain most of the time. Then we have to make for the pass, which is quite a way. And as you can see, this is a totally different atoll. quite a bit of tourist resort hotels and such like here, and a little airport. It's very, very busy, totally different from Tahanea. We should be getting to the pass in about an hour or two. Looking the other way, you can see the odd showers coming down in places. It hasn't been anything terribly heavy overnight, but it looks quite dramatic. And here's our route coming round the, let's say, the northeast corner. You almost call it the north corner actually, but anyway, of Fakarava. You can see where the boat is. We're cutting that corner slightly, just about a mile or two off the coast. Just under 1.5 miles actually off the coast, which is fine. We're in deep, deep water. It's below, beyond soundings. It's too deep. According to the chart there, you can see it's saying we're coming towards 1,200 something feet deep. So plenty of depth. Very, very steep too, these atolls. And then we'll come around to that entrance and come in there. Come in there, come around the corner and back up, double back on ourselves almost to get inside that northeast corner where all the action is and where I'll be putting down the anchor. Hopefully avoiding Bommies this time. So just coming up to 7 o'clock in the morning. It's over 6 miles to go to the pass, and then clearly another 6 miles or so to come back inside the atoll. So we're going to be about 2.5 to 3 hours before we set the anchor. We're making about 5.5 knots under motor, so it'll be over an hour before we get to the pass, and then quite a good time to go yet. And here's that northeast corner on the outside of the atoll. And we're going to end up pretty well on the inside, just on the other side of that line of palm trees. Very low lying, of course. Very steep too from here, but once you get close in, it rapidly gets very shallow. Yeah, so here again, the northeast corner of the atoll, and we're going to be, we're almost due north of, we're going to be just inside there when we finally have got to the pass and come back this way in order to anchor. Well, here we can see the lighthouse structure. My understanding is it's no longer in use as a lighthouse, but it dates back, I believe, to the late 1800s, and so it's quite a historic structure. One of the oldest, if not the oldest, I think probably the first one to be put on the Tuamotus, presumably because Fakarava was one of the very first ones that people were coming to on a regular basis. But certainly, I mean, ships were going aground, were getting wrecked on the Tuamotus regularly in those days with no GPS, and the sudden shelving into very, very shallow water from deep, deep water. Quite amazingly steep too, the coastline here, and on all the atolls the same thing. You think you're in deep, deep water, then all of a sudden you're aground. Terrible. Well, I've just been checking on what information I have tied in Fakarava, and according to my information, high water is just after 11, and low water is at 5:30ish. So 8:30 roughly is supposed to be mid-tide, coming from low water into high water. So in other words, flooding, which is maximum current. But my information is that possibly now, with all the wind that we've had, there might not be any ingoing current, only outcoming. So you just don't know until you get to the pass and have a look and see what the water's actually doing. So theoretically, any time after 8:30, when I expect to be coming in or could be coming in, I will be getting an ingoing current. There's very little wind, so that's good, because when you get wind in the opposite direction from a tide, you get nasty conditions, and that's unlikely to be happening. So I think we should be okay to go in when I get to the pass. I'm going to get my coffee on. I think it's time for coffee. There's that lighthouse got to. There we go. There's that old structure. Just looking ahead, we're rounding where the land is there to come into the pass in a short while. So there's my coffee on. Of course, in order to get the water for it, I had to use some bottled water because I'd carefully turned off the freshwater pump ready for motoring this much because the motoring makes the water in my hot water tank hot. The cooling water from the engine runs through there to heat up the water, and I did not want to lose all my water again if the pressure relief valve should go again, which I suspect is what the problem was last time. I've also turned off one of the tanks so that it's not connected to the system, just to be on the safe side. So at the moment when I turn the tap, no water comes out, which is good. Means simply that the pump's not working to pump it out. And at the moment I think I still have water in the tank, so I'll go and check that in a second. Anyway, so my coffee's on and ready to come through now before I get to that pass. I just checked the water and the gauges are telling me that both tanks are half full still, so we haven't lost any water as yet. That's good. Well, I just finished my coffee and the entrance to the pass is just ahead, so good timing there. And it looks as though, with any luck, there might be a bit of blue sky beyond there. We might, this cloud could clear away. We've got a tiny, tiny hint of, minus tiny bit of rain. Hardly anything, just a few spits and spats. But there's the entrance. And everything's looking pretty calm. There's almost no wind, so we'll see whether that has any effect on the current in the pass. Hopefully not. It looks as though we should be okay to go in. It's looking so calm at the moment. We'll get closer and have a look, and hopefully we won't have to wait around. Some people have to wait around quite a bit if there's a strong inflow against a wind in the opposite direction, but we don't have that today. Okay, so we're getting quite close to the pass now. Definitely the time for me to get to the wheel and take over from the autopilot and keep an eye on the conditions. It's looking good at the moment, very calm. Just to confirm, it's looking very calm, but I'm not actually looking into the pass at the moment. I'm looking near it, but everything's looking very good. And I really do like the hint of blue sky in the distance there. Would be nice to get some sunshine rather than this grey overcast that we've had. Interesting that our speed has suddenly dropped down a little bit, half a knot or so, which rather implies that there's a bit of an outgoing current as opposed to an ingoing, which is a possibility with the weather we've been having recently. We're beginning to come through. Not quite in the pass yet, but it's all looking so calm that hopefully it'll stay that way. We're so close to the atoll edge there, but we're actually still in deep, deep water, out of soundings, so a couple of 1,000 feet deep. Really amazing how close you can get to these atolls and still be in such deep water. A couple of little local boats there, presumably fishing, I suppose. Heading pretty well due south for the moment. There is a marked channel to get over to the east side. Well, there's the pass we just came through, and always a relief to have got inside and not had any problems. It looked as though it was going to be fine. At one moment we jumped up half a knot or so, maybe a knot. That didn't last long, and there was a little sign of water speed in the entrance there, a few waves at one point, but hardly any, about a foot maybe, if that. So nice to be inside, and now we just have to head for the far side of the northeast corner, inside now, and find somewhere to anchor. And that'll take about an hour. It's a good 6 miles. Interesting how the tide is actually having a big effect on our path. The purple line kind of coming to behind the boat is our track. The black arrow is where we're trying to head to, and the blue arrow with the double arrow flesh on it, is the tide effect, and is actually our course over the ground. So although we're pointing in one direction, the incoming flow, and clearly there is some, is trying to take us down more south of east, and we're trying to head north of east. So quite a strong current here. So at this point I think it's time to go and release the anchor, take the pin out and get it ready for anchoring. So here we have one of the port hand navigation marks with a few boats anchored nearby. Another mark on a bit of reef there. This atoll is so busy that it even has a little airstrip just over there, where there are no palm trees is the airstrip. Well, we're making first speed towards the anchorage now on the far northeast corner of Fakarava, but it's got chilly enough that I've needed to put my jacket on. I don't often have to wear my jacket, but under this grey sky with a bit of a wind blowing because we're motoring into not much wind but a little bit, the temperature is down and I am feeling that. Clearly I've got acclimatized to the warmth, and when the temperature drops, yeah, the jacket is very, very comforting. So I'm feeling nice and warm now. We've got a little way to go still. 88 feet of water, that's about 30 meters. Plenty of depth in this channel, it's well marked. There is a small reef on my starboard side which is marked quite clearly, so we're making sure we keep clear of that. So here's that lighthouse structure seen from the inside of the reef, and there's the mark showing a coral head below it, quite a big one, so well marked, no problem. It looks as though the sky might be clearing up. It'd be nice if we got a bit of sunshine today for a change. Very clearly marked, no problem with seeing that. I mean, we're actually in 30 meters still, 93 feet, but where that is, which is not that far away, is a definite coral head. That's nice. The sun is actually coming out as I come in towards the anchorage here, so that's rather nice. Means I'll be able to see the depth a bit more easily as well. This is my haul from having got on shore. As soon as I got to Fakarava, I was really lucky that in going by one boat to just quiz them about where I should head for fewer bommies than more bommies. When I'd anchored, she came along by me with a dinghy and asked whether I wanted to go inshore, which was really kind. So I went inshore immediately and forgot my camera. I'm so annoyed because it was really pretty on shore. The local primary school, the little kids' school, was right by the dinghy dock and beautifully painted with some murals. And just walking down, I wished I had my camera with me. Anyway, but I got to the boulangerie. Well, actually I went to the fuel place first because just by there was the fresh stuff. So I got my lettuce and some other fresh tomatoes. My God, I haven't seen tomatoes for a long time. And then I went on down to the boulangerie. So I got my baguette, which I had a bit of the long plastic ready for that to keep it fresher. And I'd already got eggs in with my lettuce and tomatoes, and I actually got a cauliflower, so we've done quite well on getting a courgette there. So I'm quite happy that I've actually got some fresh fruit and veg now, and the eggs, I was actually about to run out of eggs. Very, very expensive here, but you just have to pay, you know, if you want them that bad, you just have to pay for them and make the most of them and enjoy them. So what I'm going to do now is go and have a look at a snorkel and the anchor, to see where that is, because there is supposed to be some coral around, although it looked as though I was in a fairly sandy spot. But you never know. After my bad luck yesterday leaving Tahanea with the chain wrapped around 3 bommies, not just one but 3 of them, it's best to have a look and see what the situation is now. So I'm about to have a proper breakfast now with the fresh baguette and a load of butter and another coffee, and I think I'm going to have some eggs for breakfast as well. So I'm going to enjoy that. The only bad news actually is that the big generator for the little village has broken down, and they're not going to get a replacement part for a long time. It's not even in Tahiti, it has to be flown in from the States or somewhere, or France. So they've got no power, so I thought I was going to have a meal on shore tonight, and nope, the restaurant can't open because it hasn't got power. So that's bad news. I just snorkeled on the anchor chain, and it looks very, very sandy down there where the anchor's leading down to, but I actually can't quite see the anchor itself. It's just a little bit too murky right down that low down. We're in 15 meters, 45 feet, so not too surprising, but so actually it looks good, but I'm just keeping my fingers crossed that I haven't actually got the anchor anywhere near and the chain anywhere near a bommy. So here we are in Fakarava, nearing sunset, and the sky has cleared completely. Everything is very calm. We're hoping that we're not anchored on a bommy. And here we have the anchorage. Well, it was very nice because Elaine, who had given me a lift into shore in the morning, very kindly came by later and invited me over for a meal and for sundowners. So we did in fact end up looking at this beautiful sunset from their boat, and had a very nice meal. Very lovely to chat to fellow cruisers. And there we have Curly, who gave me a lift back in from shore when I got my shopping this morning.